The hell?
Wait a minute. Is that? Can you play the one off the website?
The what?
Oh, you're playing that video. Okay. No. That's good. Start with that video. Sorry, I thought that was the trailer. Go ahead.
Concerning that there are so many former TYT employees, and let's put Dor and Ruben aside, but people like Ben Dixon and Emma Vigland, and even longtime contributors who were editors like Hank. I remember Hank, and like the fact that he helped start the TYT union and now has obviously
nothing.
Okay, but I knew Hank was such a great guy, and Emma and Ben are such. I'm just saying. I'm telling you. These are, but okay, I'm afraid, man, like I'm next. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do that I'm booted out of the castle and suddenly it's us versus them. And so what does it say about TYT? What does it say about you? That there's so many former employees who are on our side ostensibly, who you have so much disdain for.
Good morning, comrades. You're listening to WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3. This is your weekly Good Morning Comrade. Jeff here on the show. We also have a very special guest, a guy that did nothing, apparently, according to Cenk Uygur.
No help.
No. We have Hank Thompson from Winners and Losers. He is also the editor, producer, creator of an upcoming documentary called Tell the Truth, Cenk. You can find more information about that at tellthetruthcenk.com. It is about the union organization effort that took place at the Young Turks. We're going to talk about all that stuff in just a moment, but we can definitely start the conversation before we even get started, just with a little taster of the documentary.
All right.
And I decided to wake up that union drive, not knowing where it's going to end up, but just being like, I got to do something. It's working for Cenk Uygur, and I'm not getting any health care, no pay days off, no benefits at all. Felt like I was being forced to carry a dark secret about TYT. I know why we started the union. It was exploitative working conditions. And other workers had their other reasons, and there's probably some of the reasons that will never see the light of day. The first attempt was 18 months before Cenk became a politician. And the union comes forward, and Cenk goes and tells his audience his political foes started the union in order to harm his run for Congress, followed by 2 months of aggressive union busting. Wild story. It was all to hide the truth, create a smokescreen. Because if he had to explain to his audience, oh yeah, my workers did have a genuine union here, they would say, well, what were their grievances? Why were they unionizing? And those are questions he does not want to answer. So I'm going to fucking answer them. That's what this whole thing is.
All right. So welcome to the program. Welcome to Good Morning Comrade. Hank.
Hello. Hey. Thank you. I'm so thrilled to talk with you today. This is an interesting story. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. And if you wouldn't mind, just sort of introduce yourself to our audience. Just tell them a little bit about who you are, where you come from, a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I grew up outside Chicago, born in the final waning days of the 70s, which is embarrassing.
Are you the last Gen Xer or the first millennial?
I think due to emotional underdevelopment, I'm a millennial, but
okay,
I'm definitely, cool. I think technically in the very end of the Gen X. It's very cuspy though. That is I remember phone books and calling movie phone. And then also I was a very early adopter to internet. And so I was like using BBS services and playing Duke Nukem 3D over like modem calls, message boards. Yeah. So I kind of was surfed the internet wave. I was riding the information superhighway real early.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of have the technology and the computer nerd part of it all, which led me to becoming a video editor and like a motion graphics guy. And so I ended to do animation. So yeah, I grew up outside Chicago, standard white people, traumatizing white people kind of upbringing. And then, into college for business. Politically, I was always kind of independently thinking. Grew up ambiently conservative. My dad, but pretty quickly dialed into how BS conservatives, were. But I didn't really arrive at where I am now until, well into adulthood, where I would call myself a leftist, anti-capitalist, or something along those lines. Certainly hoping to spur a socialist revolution. Hopefully we can accomplish that by the end of this interview. But so like kind of traverse
every week. So a socialist revolution every week.
Come
That's
on.
what we call it here.
We just got to talk people into knowing that they're worth fighting for, and that they deserve to feel better. And I think that's that's step one, because we've all been talked out of our own self-worth. So yeah, I've skipped over a whole bunch of this, but I have a fairly long history of TYT. But before my media career and kind of overlapping it, I did stand-up comedy for a stretch. In Chicago, I ran an aquarium service where I installed and maintained custom saltwater aquariums for hospitals and corporations. So yeah, actually got one behind me. It's kind of tough to see in the shot there, but
I can see it. I can see
an underwater planted aquarium designed
Looks
for
nice and
neglect.
clean.
Designed for neglect. Always, that's the best thing you can do for a fish tank, is make it easy for when you go into depressive episodes to leave it alone. Yeah,
I'm sure the fish appreciate that.
It's got shrimp. The shrimp eat the algae, and
go.
yeah. Anyway, is that sufficient? You want to hear more? Recently, I did some assistant editing on Abby Martin's new movie, Earth's Greatest Enemy. Really proud.
Okay, cool.
Out in the wild, and she's
big Abby Martin fan from a long time ago. I remember back when she was on like Russia Today on Breaking the Set and all that stuff.
Yeah, she's an OG, man, and she holds true, and she's been fighting a good fight for Gaza too, and so yeah, I was really lucky to know the main editor who brought me on to help out with some things in that project. Yeah, and,
I remember when Abby Martin started to like sideline the conversation. I remember when she decided that she would make like an anti-Putin speech on Russia Today television, and ended her program for that, and it was kind of wild. And then there was another host or whatever from that same network that did it, and immediately became friends with like the neocons, like all the worst people in the world.
Interesting. Yeah.
What's that guy that looks like an egg? Not Matt Iglesias. Oh my gosh.
I don't want to just throw out names.
Yeah.
Not sure.
I can't remember.
But the boss, you got to play by the boss's rules in the boss's world, Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you for joining us on Good Morning Comrade. And I really wanted to talk to you today about specifically like kind of like get into the weeds of that first off, the TYT union drive, the sort of like, nuts and bolts in the process of it. I'm a nerd about that kind of stuff, but also we can definitely get into the reason I find this so interesting is because this like the Young Turks is one of the sort of like first major online sort of like independent media, groups that was out there. And they sort of, you would expect at least that they would have, some kind of at least sympathy towards the union. Now, we know that, what you're going to say on YouTube or on television or whatever does not necessarily align with your material interests if you are, for example, the, CEO and host of said program. So I guess let's get into it from there. And just sort of like, talk about the drive and talk about what brought you into even working at TYT.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. Like I was an early adopter, like I was saying, of podcasts as a listener. And so I was listening to Air America way back in the day. TYT had their show on there. Majority Report was on
Jerry
there.
Springer have a show on
Air
America.
I think
That's
Jerry
so
Springer
awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah, he had some lefty politics of some stripe. And then
he was the mayor of Cincinnati.
Right. Yep.
He was the mayor of Cincinnati before his television. Like
I went to a Jerry Springer taping when I was in the city with my brother and his girlfriend. Yeah, it was nuts. They're always smaller than you expect, TV studios. But I shook his hand on the way out. It was Homewreckers Face the Music was the topic, that one. And
talk about
I
an
had
experience that like is very truly quintessentially 90s is
Yeah.
the Jerry Springer show.
yeah, they ripped my weave out in the middle of the fight, and I had to beat somebody with my high heels. So it was very I gave up that lifestyle on the way out there.
Yeah.
So Chuck D, Rachel Maddow, Liz Winstead had a show that was but anyway, so I became like a very early listener of TYT and started to do stand-up comedy, and that's kind of connected because I was also a fan of Jimmy Dore's podcast, Comedy and Everything Else, in like 2011. So I'm living in Chicago doing comedy, cleaning fish tanks. My politics are kind of like, I would have said progressive, but certainly not where they are now. But anti-Republican. I kind of hated the establishment, and I thought getting money out of politics was very persuasive, but I still feel that way. Not everything Cenk has ever said is BS, I agree with that side of it, obviously. And so as a fan of Jimmy's show, though, I'd introduced a close friend to the show, to TYT, and he became one of their first outside hires. He became a volunteer, and they hired him, and I helped him move across the country. And because of that contact, I recommended that they check out this guy, Jimmy Dore, and his show. And they did. And then, so I'm the reason why Jimmy Dore got hooked up with TYT in 2011.
Oh, thanks a lot, pal.
I know. I shouldn't admit. I shouldn't even admit.
No, it's fine.
Sorry. My crystal ball was broken. I couldn't see the future. So give me a break, everybody. He would go on rants, and he was kind of funny, and he was, but yeah. So
I found Jimmy Dore through David Feldman. I love David Feldman. He was
right.
He was
he has some. Yeah, he's funny. I like David. I haven't listened to him in a while, but I know he still goes at it. Anyway,
6 hour
podcasts. Does he? Yeah, he does like late night streams or something, right? Or yeah.
Anyway.
Anyways, yeah. So I because of that contact, though, I had started like kind of doing video editing, and I was always really good with computers and Photoshop and editing even before I started doing stand-up comedy. But I was like making short films or doing shorts and doing stand-up clips, and kind of a camera guy, sort of good with cameras and gear and computers. And I just asked my friend if I could maybe work at TOT someday, and I was thinking I'd move to LA, pursue comedy, be involved in something cool. This was like 2013-ish, and they're like kind of made an offer, not like a formal, strong offer, but they're like, okay, come on out, and we'll test it out. So I like upended my entire life, sold my aquarium business to some other fish guys because I had paying customers. So like they were able to like give me monthly payments for like a couple years, which was a big help because I wasn't paid much at all moving there. $3,000 a month for the first bid of time, and difficult to live on even back then. And anyway, but it was a huge deal. Like I had a lot to learn. I was grateful for the opportunity. It was a massive life change for me. So I moved from Chicago to LA all within like 5 weeks, and then just started busting my butt and working and learning. And that was during the era where TOT was on Current TV. If you guys remember, Al Gore had a TV channel called Current TV.
Oh yeah.
And so it was a fairly
year.
Roughly, yeah. It was a fascinating experience because this production was the web show, and TOT was becoming more and much better established. Like you said, they were very early on YouTube. In fact, Cenk will even call himself the first YouTuber, and that might even be. I know it's eye roll, but like I agree. But I do think
it's just so bombastic, you know what I mean?
like I said, because YouTube also grew along with this stuff. They were also, and like
he got in at the right time.
He says he was
got in at the right time.
Yeah, like he's like the first contract that they signed or something, and you can almost think of them as like the Tesla of online progressive media. First to market, nobody knew any different. Therefore, they had a lot of advantages. And then you realize the boss is a Wharton Business School narcissist who does union busting. Cenk went to Wharton Business School, the same business school as Donald Trump and Elon Musk. So there's a right. Yes. It's a vampire academy. There's a conservative reactionary foundation to this guy's politics.
I do have to pause for station ID. You're listening to WHIDLP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade. Hank is on the show. You can follow Hank at Winners and Losers, and you can check out all of his stuff over at tellthetruthjenk.com. Anyway, so you uprooted your life. You moved to Los Angeles from Chicago. You sold your precious aquarium business to take on a video editing job at TYT.
Sort of, not video editing quite, but that included that. Produced like studio setup. I ended up doing headlines actually during that time. I was I got certified in YouTube publishing from YouTube, like took tests. But yes, video editing was part of it. Not to interrupt, but yeah,
you're in
production, behind the scenes stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And so I guess take us from there.
All right. So that eventually kind of ended, and I was I left the company. I was wanted to pursue comedy with more force and time, and was just needed to change my direction. And then like I had been working with Jimmy Dore because he was there during that time. So because I was the comedian, Jimmy's a comedian. I was like his main producer, editor, publisher.
Just throw all the comedians into one room. It's fine. No,
I think it's a rational choice. I don't think it's the worst idea. We got along fine, Yeah, it was all right. But then Jimmy called me up and asked me to help him, or if I wanted to get involved with his channel. He wanted to do what TYT did in late 2015. I was desperate for work, really needed it. It was, I needed some money. And so I said yes. And we started posting and started doing stuff on YouTube and developed his channel. That eventually expired in about a year later, as he was entering different phases of his development. And then I stayed in touch with TYT because Jimmy was also, we got to go on some road work. We went to a Bernie Sanders campaign. I rode in multiple Bernie Sanders rallies. Nice. And then I got to ride in a motorcade with Bernie Sanders, not like in the car with him, not like Bernie. Why would I do a Bernie impression at Bernie? Hank, give me one of those Jolly Ranchers. But it's this intense experience to be in a press motorcade too. It's really fascinating when you're just some schmuck, with wet arms from the fish tank world, right? And so like, yeah, that was a cool story. If you want me to detail it, I can. No. But do you say no or yes? Yes, go, or just, no, stop?
Let's get to the union part.
Yeah, exactly. That's my saying. So then I go back in 2018 and I get hired again because I was like, I told him I just wanted to do video editing. I very much dialed in on like filmmaking and video editor and stuff. And first thing out the gate is I have to sign a contract that says I'm an independent contractor in order to work there as a video editor.
WWE style.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like, where's Vince? Is he in the other room? Yeah. And so I'm like, I don't think this is, but okay, I really need the money. I was grateful for some stable income.
For the benefit of our audience, a 1099 means that you are an independent contractor, which essentially means that you are your own sort of self-governing entity. You're not an employee, which means that you essentially are not privy to the benefits that would otherwise go to somebody who is a W-2 employee. You're not protected by the National Labor Relations Board in the same way. It's and a lot of companies, especially startups, which I would describe the Young Turks as potentially at this point, maybe it was a little bit more progressed, but like they and even very, very, very well, like very developed companies will also use 1099s as well as a way to prevent costs, essentially. Is that accurate for the most part?
Yes, exactly. And you have to pay the entire payroll tax whereas when you're an employee, that's split. And so the burden is higher. You don't have zero benefits. On top of that, I was paid less per hour than everybody else who were also video editors. So
cool. You got the worst of both worlds.
$21.63 an hour, less than every other video editor. So, and that's not a high rate for professional video editing in Los Angeles for work that goes on television and other places.
In Los Angeles too. I mean,
yeah. But I needed the money. I was having a hard time. I struggle with emotional and mental issues, which I later learned was autism. So that's kind of a big part of my story. That's why I'm mentioning it. But like, I was so happy to finally have some stable income doing work I was good at with people I liked, because I still knew a bunch of the people. And but I also knew I wasn't entering a very high respect environment, So I was like, okay, this is BS, but hopefully only a month or two. Then they'll get me benefits. I'd like to have the same disrespect everybody else gets, and we can get some freaking benefits and pay days off. Like going through like the holidays, 0 days, paid days off with no pay. Everybody else is getting paid. I'm sitting next to people who are called employees. The person who held their job before me was an employee. So on Friday, it was an employee's job. When I showed up on Monday, it was an independent contractor job. And during this time, I had heard about a union effort that had sparked up during that period where I wasn't there, right? So there's a critical timeline to this whole story. And that union effort got shied away by a round of firings that had occurred. I don't think management got wind of it. They might have heard.
Classic.
Yeah,
but it was, okay.
they were intimidated. It's scary. It takes a lot, and there can be consequences for organizing and for doing something that might threaten the boss's power and the boss's pocketbook. And nobody knows their boss better than their longtime workers. At least, especially within this world of online personalities, because the audience thinks they know the bosses so well, or the personalities, but actually it's the workers have a much closer look at who they really are.
It's
so that
parasocial relationship versus actual relationships in the real world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, versus capitalist exploiter relationship. So the union draft that had been frozen, I knew we had a contact with IATSE, the International Association of Theater and Stage Employees, which represents post-production and production professionals. And we were post-production and production professionals looking to join this union. And they were really receptive that time, but it froze. So I'm going through this thinking, I think I deserve health insurance. I think I should get paid days off. I think I should get the same benefits other people get. And remember,
you're crazy, man.
Yeah, it was just like, I can't believe this is like, is this really happening? It was really stressful and like incredibly disrespectful too, to just sort of be treated with that level of disrespect. Go.
And I also again, just to juxtapose that with the way that the on-air content of the Young Turks, where they're essentially like Medicare for all and all this other stuff. Right. And again, you're an employee of the company, the traditional way, obviously, that things have been at least done in the post-war era, and it's been decreasingly so the case, especially since the 70s and 80s, especially the 80s, has been essentially to not do that. And it's very interesting, in my opinion. I think it is not to be like, oh, hypocrisy or whatever, but to see some, you work for somebody who is exposing or espousing these values of everyone deserves health care and things like that, while also not providing health care through your job. I can imagine that being pretty you'd be pretty pissed off about that. You know what I mean?
Especially being a longtime super fan, a paying member of the company to,
so you understand that this is what they're saying all the time.
Yeah. I paid close attention to this whole thing and understood that his alleged compassion for people suffering without health care, that kind of did make it a little worse than if it's just some regular capitalist exploiting people. You'd see videos of him screaming about how people die without health insurance. And I got paperwork in my desk that says no health care, no benefits, nothing. And I just thought that was way overboard. And yeah, hypocrisy is just the shallow layer that we dig through in this catacomb of story here. But it's important to point out, I think, though, it should matter. I know it doesn't to a lot of people, but so I'm kind of plotting. I'm not putting up with this stuff. I caught myself there. I'm not doing this. This is BS, man. I think I got to wake up that union. I'm thinking this for a couple of months. And finally, though, I'm sort of a loud idiot. I kind of, I don't really keep my thoughts to myself much. And so probably the wrong guy to mess with here in this kind of way. So I finally get a meeting with HR and I'm like, hey, this is bad for me and it's bad for you. Why would you take risks? As an employee, I'm supposed to look out for your interests. Seems to me that the thousands of dollars of my money that you're keeping should be in my bank account, not yours, but also your reputation's on it. Is this okay? Is this appropriate? How can you possibly take this risk? It doesn't seem worth the risk. What are you doing? And they answered that. So this is 7 months into the gig. And I'd already started to bring up the union organizing, or because I was close with other people. I credit to a lot of great people behind the scenes at TYT. I want to give them their flowers. A lot of wonderful, hardworking, smart, and intelligent, good people that bust their butts at that company. So they deserve to be a shout out. And I was already, but intentionally I picked somebody I trusted, and it was a friend, and it was I'm going to start bringing it up. I went on my way to say, what about that? So we do have a contact. And then we eventually, after this meeting, they answered it with a change of job classification. So they decided to hire me, air quotes, for the second time, and called me a part-time temporary employee. So I did get, I got
for benefits.
No benefits, exactly. And also not part-time. Like I've posted all this information on my Substack, baldontheinside.substack. Sorry to plug early, but so just so people know that like everything I'm claiming, I have shown documentation for too, and it's not just my word.
The receipts are there.
Receipts, that's the word. Thank you. And so like I'm called now I'm part-time temporary, but I'm working 40-hour weeks. And I'm doing video editing work at a video editing company on company property, under company direction, with a company equipment, on the company schedule, under company review, right? So, and if you look up how the government assesses whether you're an employee for things like wage theft cases and stuff, they have a thing called the ABC test, and they have another one called the Morello test. And I looked into that stuff, and I was like, by all of these metrics, I feel like I'm doing company work for a video. I'm a video editor at a video production company. Like an independent contractor would be like the pest control or the coffee service that comes in and fixes the coffee machine that they had, something like that. Or maybe even a one-off project that was just like, okay, you're only going to work for a month, clear end date. Yes, it's videos, but it's still independent contractor. Fine, that's BS, but okay, that's acceptable, I guess. Because I did one of the
drywall in my house or something, you know.
Yeah. But if you're a drywall business and hire a drywall guy, then that's a drywall employee, not an independent.
You have your infrastructure, you know.
Yeah, and I wasn't running a bit. I did freelance stuff within like during that year before, but it's not like I was some company doing video production. I was just like a neurodivergent dude who desperately needed work. Go ahead.
Right. Oh, and I also wanted to say that this is not something that is like super out of the ordinary for media generally. This is sort of like an industry standard, which again, like not to be hypocrisy or whatever, but like you would expect, you know, you as the, you know, super fan who gets the show, you know, starts working for that company, essentially like be kind of like smacked in the face by the fact that this thing that you thought had these particular values did not, and the reality was very much different than what you had expected. Let me pause the station ID. You're listening to HIVLP New Orleans 102.3. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been on Matt Strackbine's The Leather Hack, one of our faves. This space, everybody. Yep, lots of cool stuff coming out of that guy. And you know, he made the point like, who talked about unionizing there? Did Jank ever talk? And I was like, yes, he would talk about unions. They would do stories about unions. I'd edit stories about unions and about other companies pulling BS on their workers and why unions were good. But it was also kind of qualified as those are other people. That's not internal, obviously. But like, you know, his argument would be big. He supports unions at big companies, but small companies he shouldn't. There's actually a website called the Digital it's in the film. It's called the Digital Employees something. But it's this big list of small media companies. Young Turks is on there, all who have unions. So and they had gotten, you know, tens of millions of dollar investments and 80 employees, and, you know, our work was going on to Roku and TV stations and stuff. Like, this is more than just a small podcast. And so anyway, after that job change, that title change to part-time worker while I'm working 40 hours, that's when like we took the union drive much more seriously, right? We really pushed into like, we're serious now. In fact, that's something I would advise people starting a union is like, you have to be very careful at first. You got to have good operational security. Don't do it on company property. Don't use Slack to do your organizing. Hell, maybe do a misinformation. Maybe send them in the wrong course. Be like, oh, we love the company. We're all so happy.
Yeah, and I'm sure that when you reached out to the IATSE folks, they advised you on a lot of these things as well.
Correct. We hadn't reached out yet. We knew we had a contact, but at this point, we were just basically going, okay. Oh yeah. One other advice is like, do a check-in on how serious you are, because sometimes you just got to blow off steam because work sucks, right? You're just griping about your boss. But I actually went on my way to be like, so are we just blowing steam here? Or are we actually serious? Do you want to go forward? Do you want to really do this? And you know, it's healthy to be very clear about where you stand, and you could even change your mind down the road. It's not like any commitment means you have to stick with it forever. There's nuances to how this whole process works. But then we go, yeah, we're serious. Like, you're not part-time, and we're all employees, except you're called a part-time worker who doesn't get benefits. You know, 4th of July, day off, everybody gets paid except me. Jen keeps my $173.04. Like, what the hell? This is wrong. And so, And so then we're like, okay, well, who else are we talking? Well, let's talk to that person. Cool. Now it's 3 people. Let's talk to that. Okay, now it's 4 people. Cool. Now let's talk to that person. Now it's 5 people. Now it's getting bigger. So you start to expand that sort of bargaining unit and kind of get people's interest in it. And we're still doing our jobs. We're still working our butts off. Fast forward a little to October, we finally email IATSE and schedule our first meeting. And then all of a sudden, this is where the story goes from sort of a classic labor drama to a weird media and political battle, is that Cenk just goes and becomes a politician.
This is awesome, because I remember when this was happening, and like I was just like, you know, I had long since like stopped watching at this point, but I just sort of like, oh, that guy from that show from those years ago that I used to watch, he's running for Congress. Good on him, you know, whatever.
What can you maybe you can share a little though? When did you? What was your interface with TYT and your media diet?
I mean, I would have probably watched it around probably 2010 through 2012, like prior to that, like that current TV area. I was already kind of like tuned into it, and then like, you know, when I really did start watching it more when they did that big crowd fund for their studio that their members essentially purchased, and then, you know, they used a lot of that member money to hire a union. But this is spoilers here a little bit, but
sure. Okay to spoil it,
you know, just to kind of get ahead of it. But that was sort of like, okay, cool. I thought it was really awesome that, you know, this is independent media. It's funded by the people who consume it, and this is a really good model for. This is really a good model, and you know, how can you? They're constantly reinforced over and over again how much they, you know, live their values essentially, and that was sort of like they insisted on it constantly, how much they were really about it, and obviously, I mean, the way things sort of when reality hits you in the face like that, it was obviously not the truth.
It was marketing. It was marketing. It was. Yes, you'd think we're the honesty people. We're the ones that do the work. We fight for the little guy. We fight for the average guy. These are all stuff he still says, and it's like you don't. You're really just you know, using that to trick people, because you know people want to hear that, and it's certainly, if you're going to label yourself the home of progressives, you have to sort of sell those traits. And I think to some degree, like if Cenk became a politician, I still think he'd be. I'm not saying I'm supporting him becoming a congressperson, but he should run for freaking Congress.
He wouldn't be the worst congressperson, I guess.
Wouldn't be the worst by any stretch.
There's even with bad people in Congress.
Yes, it's a demon convention. It's all horrible people.
Sorry to like do an aside, but like this is a conversation I've had with a number of people when we would talk about Graham Plattner and like his, you know, Nazi tattoo, quote unquote, or whatever, and not even quote unquote. Sure, it's got the thing, but I'm just sort of like, okay, let's just say that all of the stuff is true and he's like kind of racist or whatever. Like he'd probably be like the 99th most racist senator.
Yeah. I think he should have put like the Ghostbusters logo, like this red circle.
Yeah.
That's what he should have put on top of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like you know, the things remain to be seen, and we have to make space. If we don't make space for people to change in this country, because we are a crappy dude factory. This country is.
Rocky said it best in Rocky 4. If you could change, and I could change, everybody could change.
Rocky,
remember that?
Rocky. I trust you. I'm not going to fact check
Rocky 4, when he fought the giant Russian. And he turned the Soviet crowd like behind him. It was so awesome.
Wonderful.
That movie God, I love that movie.
Yeah. You defeat communism by beating it up and inspiring the masses. So
working class rose up to the working class rose up to throw off its communist oppressors and embrace the capitalist.
Yes.
Utopia.
Yeah, going great. Really great work, capitalists.
I love the 80s. I love the 80s.
No, right? Yeah. The military is so deeply involved in films, and especially if you use their gear and their equipment, like they have script approval, and so I just worked on a movie about that with Abby Martin. But it's so where was I in this story? So now Cenk's a politician, so he decides to run for Congress, in California's 25th district, which like is like Palmdale, like kind of the valley, I think. I don't know the precise borders, but it was a special election.
Right? A purple district, essentially.
Yeah, a lot of entertainment workers from LA. I mean, a lot of union people too. IATSE, people live all over the place. And IATSE is also in, international and, wherever there's films and cameras and stuff and commercials, there's IATSE is around. So, anyway, yeah, but the term is carpetbagger, which is where you're not from the district, but you're running for it. And he was promising to move there if he won and stuff like that. A congresswoman named Katie Hill had been bounced out from a scandal involving photos of her and a staffer or something with her husband. The Democrats, of course, cowards that they are, kicked her out. So they had to do a special election to fill her seat. So Cenk was running against this person, Christy Smith, who was a California state assemblywoman, centrist, lib centrist, wouldn't be the worst in Congress, but definitely like centrist and kind of supported. But she had some I think she might have been endorsed by the nurses union, teachers union or something like that. And I don't really get into too much of that detail, but in this film that I'm making, we get into the politics of it, right? So like it's sort of an unofficial documentary of Cenk's campaign at the time, because that was a context in which later, as the months went by, and we'll rewind too, because there's some interesting nuts and bolts I want to share. But the election was in March, and Cenk filed in November. And our first meeting with IATSE was the same week that he filed. So there was like this little 2-day gap where, and this is an important detail, is like, he files and then announces, and then we had our meeting with IATSE on that Friday. So it's like Tuesday morning to like Friday morning. We'll come back to that gap. That's an important little detail. And so the union doesn't come forward until February, right? So that's when they, as far as I understand, although there's been some indications they did have some inkling close to the date that we came forward. I should say that now, okay, I'm getting a little bit twisted up here. So this 4-month period was very intense for the company, where between November, December, January, February, and then into March, we obviously, when the boss is a congressperson, you're going to consider that as a factor in how you're going to behave and what you might do. Obviously, running, but like that's the environment. Every union has to operate within its environment and within the constraints and the opportunities and strengths and whatever else of its circumstances. And so I get actually laid off. That's why I say the union came forward. I wasn't involved when the union came forward. I got laid off in January. The union doesn't come forward. And at that point, I'm like cut off from communication. Like I didn't think it wasn't appropriate for me to stay involved. It was unfortunate. I get tapped on the shoulder, brought up to an office with Cenk and his number 2 guy. And Cenk had made a formal declaration of not being the CEO of his company during his candidacy too, because there's ethical boundaries in terms of a media boss owner running as a politician because of the risk that appearances on his own shows or stuff like that might be considered in-kind contributions. There's like pretty substantial legal things to be careful about. But fired, laid off. I didn't get any indication it was about unionizing. I thought it might be. I had to kind of make up my mind during that like 60-foot walk to the execution chamber with the HR person. Just like if they confront me about, because I'm unionizing this place, right? We're deep in it at this point. We'd already had a couple of meetings with the IATSE organizers, and we were like building out our bargaining unit and working on it. And so like it was like, man, if they want to confront me, I might fight. I'm not a weakling, I'll yell back. But also I was like, it won't do my friends any good if I create a giant scene here. So I was like, I'm just going to be quiet if they bring it up. And it didn't seem like they thought they did fired me for unionizing. It did appear to be a part of like a small downsizing that they were doing. They're canceling some shows and stuff like that. So, but nevertheless, it was intense. And of course, I'm still interested in this. And the union comes forward in February after, and the way that works is a boss has a decision to make. Do we voluntarily recognize? We came forward, or they came forward with card check, right? So they held an election.
So this was the company's idea to. Well, no, the union decided that they wanted to essentially pursue card check. Can you describe what card check is?
Yeah, so card check is a process where it's an election that the workers hold. It actually goes to a certification from the NLRB after it's formalized. But it's essentially it's if 50% plus one of the employees say they're for the union, then the company is required to recognize. Well, the PRO Act would make it so that they're required. They're currently not required. But it's
can I just sort of elaborate a little bit? Sorry,
it's democracy. Yeah, do it. Go.
So essentially, the normal process is for you to essentially collect a certain amount of cards. When you reach a certain threshold of union people signing union cards, then you present it to the National Labor Relations Board, and you hold an election. Now, there is an alternative process that you can go through, which you can be negotiated through the employer, called card check, which essentially, if you can get a majority of cards, 50% plus one, then essentially you can skip the union part, skip the whole get out the vote part, and essentially the employer agrees that they would recognize the union. That's sort of like two paths that could be pursued to get to union recognition.
Yes, and it's generally like shows good faith that this is a union and that we're willing to start negotiating. So if you recognize the union, then that begins the negotiation process. And there's a pretty detailed graphic in the film that kind of lays that out. And there's also examples of like I think the Vice Union drive was recognized within like an hour. I recall reading about the Talking Points memo, website. They had a union drive, and apparently the guy like got a text on his way to work and then recognized it before he got to work. Like you can make a decision about it. They didn't make it. They were holding off on recognizing card check. So there's this really critical period. It turned out to be about 9 days where is TYT going to say yes to this union or not? Now, there's a very important detail here. That IATSE had endorsed Christy Smith, Cenk's opponent, in the race. So that adds a layer of suspicion and paranoia. And I actually think, and I've gone out of my way on my Substack writings and in the film and somewhat, that I think it's appropriate that they would have been somewhat paranoid or justifiable, that given like how intense this campaign was and that TYT was facing a lot of the pushback, how Democratic Party pushback against progressive outsiders, that happens all over the place. We can list there's so many examples. In fact, in the final version of the film, I hope to do like a little history portion that details some of that with, the various ways that they do it.
I will say this though, I'm sorry, just to jump in.
Please.
It is not uncommon, I guess you could say, for a union to make a safe endorsement in an election, especially if you and this is sort of why a lot of in 2016, people don't always understand this. Like people were like, yeah, unions need to endorse Bernie Sanders in 2016, or whatever. Unions can actually feel fairly confident that whether or not they would endorse somebody like Bernie Sanders would be supportive of their program because it's such a key integral part of his project that if you endorse the safe option, the more conservative establishment option, they will not be vindictive to you. So it's like, it's not the most courageous approach for a union to take, but there is a logic to it, right? It's essentially like mitigating loss. And I just wanted to sort of point that part out because it's really kind of key to like when people are just like, oh, this, I remember in 2020, there was a really big, and I thought I was very disappointed in the culinary union in Las Vegas when they were supportive of Joe Biden, but it was for very similar reasons.
Related to the healthcare access, they didn't want to
healthcare access, and again, making sure that you're on board or you're essentially kissing the king's ring, rather than, Bernie's not going to kick you in the teeth. Biden probably would, and he eventually did. Actually, the fact that he has been better than the alternative Republican.
That Vegas union has been cited. I've seen for people that kind of relate it to why unions can be suspect. In other words, that they might be up to dirty political moves from people justifying TYT's union busting.
I'm sure that there is not everything on the up and up with Culinary 322. It is also undeniable that Culinary 322 has lifted so many workers out of destitute situations in the generations that they've been in existence. So you do, in a lot of senses, if you navigate the political climate and measure that against the actual material benefit of a union, you got to look at that, and you cannot say, well, unions are bad for workers. You know what I mean?
they're political. They can be political entities, and they're human entities. That means that they're inherently going to be messy, especially in the kind of culture we come from. I mean, America, anti-union, pro-capitalism, brainwashed. Yeah, no class consciousness. So like, you don't just turn your brain off because you think unions are perfect for every single nuance and stop thinking. Yes, those are decisions that have to be made and negotiated. And to me, it always shakes down to, do you deserve more agency over your life or do you not? Should you have a say in how much BS you're going to put up with? What are the consent parameters for your life? And having collective bargaining gave us the power to make our boss give everybody health insurance and paid days off. As a negotiator, I was an individual before. I didn't, and I never reached a point. Well, let me just be clear. Actually, I did finally get benefits after 12 months of full-time labor. I did finally get hired for a third time for the same job, and I got almost full benefits. So 12 months without benefits doing full-time, ridiculous. But as an individual, I had no power. I had no leverage. That's what it all comes down to. And that's sort of the core thesis of this whole project I'm doing is hoping to educate and trying to inspire people to see that if you want to improve your lot, if you feel like you deserve more out of your life, if you can only do that with more agency. In fact, in like end of life studies where people are dying, it's always, I wish I spent more time with my family, the people I love, and I also wish I had more agency over my life. It's like the number one predictor of human happiness is how much are you allowed to consent to, is what it comes down to. Because democracy is about consent, and collective bargaining. Oh, you got to do your break. Go.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. Collective bargaining changes the leverage. As a group, we had more leverage than we didn't. In fact, like one of the things I like to think, the way I conceive it, is that Cenk had power. His power was my weakness. Because I was weak, he was strong.
Yep.
And what the threat to a union is that we, by taking away his power, we made him weaker. But we did that by increasing our strength. We became strong as a group. Therefore, his power went down because our weakness was his strength. That's what we got to realize about all these capitalist bastards. Is that a word I can say? Sorry, make it.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. That's what we got to realize, is that the reason they're strong isn't because they are strong. They are only strong because they control how weak we are. Mm-hmm. Weakness and stress and toil and struggle that we all have to put up with, the precariousness that they keep us living on, this razor's edge of, you're going to end up like those homeless people. Look at you out there. You're going to end up even worse. That's all so that they can titrate the degree of weakness that we have to live with so that they can be strong relatively. And collective bargaining wipes out that weakness in a major way and turns the tables, because the actual source of it all is labor, is actually people working together as a group.
United we bargain, divided we beg.
Yeah. And so okay, so because IATSE had endorsed Christy Smith, they had decided they rejected card check. And as I detail in the film, like everything kind of comes public on February 21st. So the union came forward on the 12th. 9 days later, on the 21st, is when it becomes this public thing. And IATSE and TYT union put out statements saying that they rejected card check. Cenk and Anna immediately launch into damage recovery mode, and they put out false information. Anna put out completely false information about how the union operates, saying they were trying to unionize producers, which is just literally impossible. IATSE doesn't unionize producers whatsoever. And so she was getting bad information from somewhere. But they pointed to the fact that IATSE had endorsed Smith as justification for why they had to reject this union. So that served them as a very important or very useful smokescreen to create this facade that this wasn't actually my workers unionizing. This was a dirty political trick to harm my run for Congress. And so that's the core lie of the film. Tell the truth, Cenk. It's like, no, it was a worker-led union, and it wasn't a political ploy at all. And we didn't. And this was an insulting smear to myself and to everybody in the union. And I'm not basing that off my own feelings. I also have good sources. Go ahead.
Well, and I also want to point out that. Well, let me pause for station ID. Listen to WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade. Hank on the program. Tellthetruthjenk.com. You can. One of the things that I noticed that was consistent in the statements that they made was not that like they would always target IATSE as an international union, which the TYT union was attempting to become a part of. However, like the TYT union aren't even members of that union yet. They are not. They don't have a contract. They are not members of IATSE. They aspire to become members of IATSE, but that doesn't happen until you have a contract. So there is a distinction, but they are trying to essentially third party the union, or even make a messy conflation between TYT union and IATSE as a whole.
Yes, and in the intervening years since, so TYT then does 2 months of aggressive union busting, withholding raises and bonuses, putting out this slander about the workers who started the union, myself included. That's why that's like one of the, that's why I do have ownership over that, over my own lived experience.
And trying to blame the union for withholding the wages and bonuses, which is insane, because if they tried to do that, I've been on campaigns. I'm a union organizer myself. When the boss gives a raise or whatever to attempt to fend off the union, it's very easy to just say, hey, you don't think they would have done that if the union wasn't already there? It's kind of insane that you would already take off your own workers into getting into the union.
Yes, and in these, so 4 articles were written. The easiest place to find the 4 articles is the sources section of the website, tellthetruthjank.com. Scroll down to sources, and so the 4 articles, he was quoted because he talked to the journalists. This is Hamilton Nolan, who you might be familiar with his work. He said that everybody knows that if we give them the raises and bonuses, we'll be accused of bribing the workers not to unionize. It's like, no, this money that they earned, dude. Oh, there you go. Great. Yeah, those are the headlines. So there was the Huffington Post article.
The union will say, "You're welcome. More of that, please."
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Kim Kelly wrote the New Republic article. Hamilton Nolan wrote the Indies Times, and Alex Thompson wrote the Politico article, which was like the kind of sums it all up. That was the latest one. But in the intervening years, to get to what you're saying, Cenk has denied being a union buster. He's never been confronted about it by anybody on the left. And I think that's something that I would hope to correct. Let's see that. We'd like to see that change in 2026.
Or at least anybody with clout.
No, literally nobody's confronted him about it. No, not a single. He got called as a show. It was brought up by a caller.
Let Good Morning Comrade be the first ones to do it.
That would be fantastic. Yeah.
We hereby call you out, Cenk Uygur, the union buster.
Seriously, I mean, are we not supposed to live our principles or not? I mean, and we saw the hatred that he had for me at the beginning in the clip you played. Like, all I've done this whole time is live the principles TYT pretends to live. I moved across the country to fight for these principles. I'm not going to stop living them just because it would make the company look bad, right? But so he was confronted about it by a caller. He said he didn't do any union busting. He denied being a union buster, and then gaslit about how could we be a union buster if we have a union? Like, losing a union busting campaign still means you tried to start a union. Arsonists that don't burn down buildings are still arsonists, And
attempted union buster, is that better? You failed that union buster.
Yeah, I couldn't even do that right. And then he was asked about it on Revolutionary Change, a show on YouTube. It was called Generational Change before, but they were very friendly and they trusted him. And actually, that's going to be in the film, because the film is about misinformation and media and power dynamics as much as it's about the union side. So it's like kind of these two dramas that move alongside each other. And they asked him very friendly, and he gave them a BS line. He doubled down on the smear that the workers were intimidating other workers. He even said his own workers were intimidating other workers.
Classic.
As a way.
That is 101 union busting,
dude.
Bro,
seriously.
I was on strike one time. With the driver. It was a part of a union drive that was out, and one part of this unit went out, and the other part wasn't, and the other one had not essentially organized their union or whatever yet. And management was essentially on the people that were in the process of organizing, saying, "Oh, make sure you're safe. If you need to take PTO or whatever," like that kind of stuff. I try to scare you of the union, or like trying to say that people who are organizing for their collective, rights, or right to bargain, or for better, conditions or respect on the job, you are actually doing something violent or dangerous. It's
right.
Sort of like,
be careful. Yeah. They're going to hurt the wonderful parent. Like, it's very patrician. It's very patriarchal kind of bull s. I'm trying to not use my words. Bullpucky. Thank you. Like, they fired somebody who was organizing the union during the whole campaign, the day after he loses the election, too. So like the morning after he loses the election, his first act is as back as the CEO, back as I'm doing
As
air
a
quotes
charge.
is that they fired someone who was doing a union organizing, and that also generated one of the 2 NLRB cases that were generated. So you can search the NLRB website, find TYT's union busting stuff, and actually that one was finally in 2022. When I was working on this documentary, this piece of paper, you've probably seen these before. This is a notice to employees, this big, tall sheet of paper that the Young Turks got nabbed for doing union busting. And this is the guy who says he didn't do any union busting, even though he did so much union busting. The government told him to stop doing union busting. So give me a break, dude. So this is obviously in the film, and this is actually kind of drove me to expand this project, because I wasn't really intending to make a full feature-length documentary until it became clear it was this big story. Shoot, I lost track of where I was.
He had fired somebody when he lost the election, or when he had lost his election for Congress.
I was going through the
2 minutes left, by the way.
I know, yeah. So he's been asked about it multiple times. It was brought up on Jubilee in a very dramatic way, and he doubled down on the
when he debated, he debated leftist and right wingers. That was awesome.
Yeah,
Jubilee is the worst.
It is very not a good.
It's just
But I was grateful that guy brought it up. That brought a lot of attention to it, and that's going to be in the film and stuff. But no, he hasn't been confronted. Like, I want to see someone of a high profile, and even Hassan Piker has said that Uncle Cenk skirted labor regulations, stole ad sales from him, and he told Sean O'Brien on his podcast that he 100% needed a union to be protected. So like, there's a bigger story here, and the entire, and it also, the greater story is about work, and why are we working for people? What is work supposed to mean in our lives, and what is labor, and when is it time to maybe defend planet Earth from these demons that are going to kill the entire species so that they can make their stupid line go up? Anyway, I'm trying to wrap it up quickly, but I appreciate you having me on. I want to hear so much more about your stuff. You got to come on my show and tell me stories about you.
Oh, totally. I mean, obviously, I can't talk about ongoing projects.
I know.
Definitely tell you about some of my previous things. But just sort of like in the last minute or so, where can people find you? Tell us about what you're doing, and any kind of parting words for our audience.
Well, first parting word is you deserve better. Everybody deserves better, and I hope that I
deserve better, baby.
We got to take the power back from these people, and I'm hopeful to. So tellthetruthjank.com. I'm going to launch a big fundraiser push in the next year. I'm in debt to my roommate about 40 grand. I'm trying to raise 50 grand. It's hard to do.
Roommate.
Honestly, it's just a mess, and I've almost had to. I mean, it's been not okay. Like, things have been stressful. So my beard fell out. This has not been a healthy process for me at all. That's what the money's for. But I'm trying to get that together. Would love to get a big rally going for that. So tellthetruthjank.com. All the way at the bottom are all my socials. Winners and Losers is my podcast on YouTube. And I also do some video game stuff on Suck Professor, another one of my YouTube channels that I have had for quite a long time. So, and This Space TV, I show up every once in a while, and big things ahead for that little co-op too. Which is great.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. You're obviously welcome to come back anytime. We can talk about this some more, or some different fun stuff, whatever it is. But Hank, thank you so much for joining us on Good Morning Comrade.
You're welcome. Grateful for you. Solidarity.
Absolutely, solidarity. And thank you to everybody for listening. This is Good Morning Comrade on WHIV LP New Orleans. We love you. Bye-bye.